Forced to pay 18 years of child support for ex's affair, baby. Now she wants startup money too. You know how people say you should trust your gut? Yeah, I ignored mine for months, and now I'm paying for it. Literally. I remember the day Emma was born like it was yesterday. My ex, let's call her Catherine for the sake of this story, was so happy, holding her in the hospital bed with this huge smile. But the second I looked at Emma, this weird feeling hit me. She didn't look like me at all. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but she had none of my features. Her hair was lighter, her skin tone was different, and I swear her eyes were a shade of blue that didn't come from anywhere in my family. But then I thought, whatever. Babies change as they grow, right? So I pushed it down. For a few weeks, I tried not to think too much about it, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. I mean, we've all heard those stories about people who thought the same thing, and it turns out they were just wrong, right? I tried to go with that idea. Maybe Emma would grow out of it, and one day I'd wake up, look at her, and be like, oh yeah, she's definitely mine. But deep down, something was gnawing at me. Catherine seemed different after Emma was born too. She was still sweet, still acting like everything was normal, but there were these moments where she just seemed distant. There were times when she'd catch me staring at Emma and get this strange look on her face, like she was hiding something. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd just brush it off, say she was tired or stressed. The usual new mom stuff. After 2 months of trying to ignore my suspicions, I couldn't take it anymore. I'd catch myself staring at Emma for way too long, analyzing every little feature, comparing her to the twins and Olivia. It just didn't add up. It was like this sinking feeling I couldn't shake. One night, while Catherine was asleep, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went through her phone. Now, I'm not proud of this. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who goes snooping through his wife's messages, but I was desperate, and that's when I found it. A message. It wasn't some love confession or anything, but it was just enough to set me off. There was a chat between her and some guy named Mark that was all sorts of flirty, with messages going back months, even before she was pregnant. I wasn't sure if this was Emma's father, but something about the whole thing just didn't sit right with me. I didn't confront her right away, though. I wanted proof. Real proof, because I knew Catherine would just deny it. So I waited a few more weeks, and that's when I did the paternity test. The twins had no idea, obviously, and Olivia was too young to notice something was off. I went to the clinic on my own, took the test, and had to sit on that secret for weeks. It was killing me, every second of it. I don't know if you've ever had to wait for results like that, but man, it's torture. Every day that went by, I felt more distant from Catherine. It was like I was living with a stranger. Every time she'd talk about Emma, this bitterness would rise up in my throat. I started avoiding eye contact, keeping conversations short, and spending more time at work. Honestly, part of me wanted the results to come back saying I was wrong, that I was just being a paranoid idiot. But when those results finally came in, it felt like my world just crashed. I remember opening the letter at home while Catherine was out shopping with the kids. It was just me and this envelope, and my hands were shaking like crazy. I opened it, skimmed over the technical jargon, and saw the words 0% probability. Emma wasn't mine. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at those two words. 0% probability. All this time, I was raising a kid that wasn't even mine, and Catherine had known. She had to have known. I didn't even know what to do at that moment. Do I call her? Do I confront her when she gets home? Part of me wanted to pack a bag, leave, and never look back, but I couldn't do that to the twins or Olivia. So I waited. I waited until she got home, and that's when I finally confronted her. I remember it so clearly, like I'm replaying it in my head on a loop. She came in, bags in hand, chatting about some sales she hit up, and I just stood there in the kitchen waiting for her to stop talking. When she saw the look on my face, she knew something was wrong. She asked me, "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't even say anything at first. I just held up the letter. She didn't even need to read it. She knew. The color drained from her face, and she just stood there, frozen. Finally, she said, "It's not what you think." That's when I lost it. "Not what I think?" I shouted. "You've been lying to me for 2 months. Hell, probably longer. You knew Emma wasn't mine, didn't you?" She tried to deny it at first, giving me the whole I didn't know for sure speech, but I wasn't buying it. I kept pressing her, asking who the father was, and that's when she clammed up, refused to say a word about him. I was furious. I told her I wanted a divorce right there. No discussion, no second chances. It was over. After I dropped the whole divorce bomb on Catherine, things got messy real fast. I thought it'd be simple, split up, divide assets, move on with my life, but nah, she made it a living nightmare. Honestly, I think she just wanted to hurt me as much as possible. I was already feeling pretty messed up about Emma not being mine, but Catherine wasn't going to let me walk away that easy. First thing she did was lawyer up, and of course, she picked the nastiest lawyer she could find. The guy was known for dragging divorces out, making every little thing a fight. I wasn't prepared for that at all. I just wanted to be done, get some peace, but instead I found myself in the middle of this endless war. Every time I thought we were close to an agreement, she'd throw something new in my face. She wanted more money, more custody, more time with the twins. I was exhausted. I'll never forget the first court hearing. I walked in thinking, I got this. I had proof of her cheating. I had the paternity test. And I thought that'd be enough for the judge to see things my way. But nope. The second Catherine's lawyer opened his mouth, it was like everything flipped upside down. They started painting this picture of me as the bad guy, the unfit father, the one who abandoned Emma. They twisted every little thing, like the fact I moved to a different city after the divorce. Suddenly, I was disrupting the children's lives, making it hard for them to have stability. It was insane. I sat there listening to this, feeling like I was in some kind of alternate reality. I mean, I was the one who'd been lied to, cheated on, stuck paying for a kid that wasn't even mine. And somehow, they turned me into the villain. But here's the kicker. Wait, scratch that, can't say kicker. They didn't even care about Emma not being mine. The court didn't give a damn. Even with the paternity test, they ruled that since I was married to Catherine when Emma was born, I was still on the hook for child support. I tried to fight it, I really did, but it felt like every door I knocked on got slammed in my face. The legal system was a joke. What made it worse was Catherine's refusal to name Emma's real father. She just stood there, playing dumb, claiming it was some random fling, like she didn't know. I didn't buy that for a second. She knew exactly who he was, but she kept him hidden to protect her own ass. And meanwhile, I was stuck with the bill. The worst part, though, was the custody battle for the twins and Olivia. That cut deep. I had always been there for my kids. I loved them more than anything, and now Catherine was trying to take them away. She didn't care about what was best for them. This was all about control. She wanted to punish me for leaving her, and she was using the kids to do it. It was sick. I remember one hearing where her lawyer went off about how unstable I was, how I abandoned Emma and wasn't a fit father. I nearly lost it in that courtroom. I wanted to scream, I didn't abandon anyone. She's not even my kid. But of course I had to sit there, keep my cool, and let my lawyer do the talking. The whole thing felt like a losing battle from the start. It dragged on for months, months of sleepless nights, stressing over every little detail, wondering if I'd ever get a fair shot. I tried to keep it together for the twins and Olivia, but even they could tell something was off. They'd ask me why I wasn't around as much, why I always seemed upset, and I didn't know how to explain it to them. How do you tell your kids that their mom is trying to take them away from you? Eventually, we came to some kind of agreement. I got 50/50ths custody of the twins and Olivia, which was a win, I guess. But it didn't feel like a win. Not really. Every time I looked at Emma, I felt this pit in my stomach, like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I didn't want to feel that way, but I couldn't help it. I tried to be civil for the kids' sake, but Catherine made it impossible. She'd send nasty texts, bring up old arguments, accuse me of being a terrible father. It never stopped. One day, after a particularly brutal court hearing, I was sitting in my car, just trying to breathe. I remember thinking, how the hell did I end up here? I'd always thought I'd be the kind of dad who was there for his kids no matter what, but this whole situation had me questioning everything. Was I doing the right thing by fighting for custody? Was I dragging the kids into a mess that wasn't their fault? But then I'd think about what Catherine was doing, how she was using the kids as pawns in this twisted game, and I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her take them away from me, no matter how hard she tried. The twins and Olivia deserved better than that. Things eventually settled down a bit after the custody arrangement was finalized, but it never really went back to normal. I tried to move on with my life, but every time I saw Emma, that old bitterness would creep back in. I couldn't shake it. And the worst part? Catherine knew it. She'd find little ways to remind me, to twist the knife. Like when she'd drop the kids off and make some snide comment about how I should be grateful. I wasn't paying more in child support, or how I'd failed as a father by not loving Emma like I did the others. It was brutal. I tried not to let it get to me, but after a while, it wore me down. I started withdrawing, putting up walls. I didn't want to be around Catherine, didn't want to deal with her manipulative crap. I even started distancing myself from Emma, not because I didn't care about her, but because it was just too damn painful. I'd look at her and see all the lies, all the betrayal. It wasn't her fault, but I couldn't help it. At the end of the day, the divorce may have ended, but the damage didn't. Catherine had gotten what she wanted, control, power, whatever you want to call it, and I was left picking up the pieces, trying to hold on to the little bit of my family I had left. Looking back, I don't know if there was anything I could have done differently. Maybe if I'd fought harder in court, maybe if I'd been more aggressive with the lawyers. But that's the thing about these situations. You can never really win. You just survive. And that's what I've been doing ever since. After the whole custody mess was finally settled, I thought maybe I could start moving on with my life. Just focus on the twins and Olivia, try to be the best dad I could be for them. But it wasn't as easy as I hoped. Every time I picked up the kids or dropped them off, there was always some sort of drama with Catherine. She just couldn't let things go, always finding a way to dig into me, bring up old wounds. For the first couple of years after the divorce, I barely saw Emma. She was living with Catherine full-time, and honestly, I didn't fight that. I know it sounds harsh, but after everything, it was hard to even look at her without feeling all this resentment bubbling up inside me. I mean, she wasn't my kid. I knew that. She probably knew that. And yet I was still paying child support for her every single month. It didn't sit right with me, and it made it damn near impossible to build any kind of relationship with her. There were a few times when I tried, though. I remember one Christmas when the twins were about 10. We'd set up this big holiday dinner at my place. Olivia was there too, and I figured, maybe it's time to make an effort with Emma. So I invited her even though part of me was hoping she wouldn't show up. Of course, Catherine had to make a big deal out of it. She dropped Emma off an hour late and came in with this whole smug look on her face, like she was doing me a favor by letting me spend time with her daughter. That pissed me off, but I bit my tongue. Emma was quiet the whole night, barely said 2 words to me. She sat there like she didn't want to be there, didn't want to be part of our family. The twins tried to include her, but it was awkward. She wasn't like them, didn't have the same interests, didn't share the same inside jokes. She was just there. When dinner was over, I drove her back to Catherine's, and the whole ride, Emma didn't say a single thing. I tried to start a conversation, asked her about school, friends, whatever, but I got nothing. Just one-word answers. I remember thinking, why am I even bothering? I was trying to make something happen that just wasn't there. And that was probably the last time I really tried. As the years went on, things between me and Emma stayed pretty much the same. Distant. We'd see each other on birthdays or during holidays when the kids would all be together. But that was it. Maybe we'd exchange a couple of awkward hellos or goodbyes, but there was no real connection. Catherine didn't help either. She'd always drop these passive-aggressive comments when she was around, saying stuff like, Emma doesn't feel comfortable here, or, you should really try harder with her for her sake. Like I hadn't already tried. The truth was, I didn't know how to be a dad to a kid that wasn't mine. I'd already spent all those years pouring everything into Olivia and the twins. They were my world, and I wasn't sure how to fit Emma into that, especially when Catherine was still pulling the strings behind the scenes. Every time Emma came over, it felt like she was a stranger in my own home. There was no bond there, no shared history. She was Catherine's daughter, not mine, and I couldn't shake that feeling. And then, there were the failed relationships. After the divorce, I tried dating again, but it didn't take long for me to realize I had trust issues the size of Mount Everest. I couldn't get past the betrayal. Every woman I met, I'd find myself second-guessing everything, reading too much into their texts, wondering if they were seeing someone else. It was exhausting for me and for them. I went through relationship after relationship, each one falling apart faster than the last. It got to a point where I just gave up. I remember one girl, we'll call her Sarah, who I thought maybe, just maybe, could be something serious. We'd been dating for about 6 months, and I was starting to let my guard down, thinking maybe I could actually move on from everything with Catherine. But then, one night, she left her phone on the table while she went to the bathroom, and I saw a message pop up from some guy named James. I didn't even hesitate. I grabbed the phone, scrolled through her messages, and sure enough, there were flirty texts going back and forth. I confronted her the second she came back, and she swore it was just a friend, nothing more. But by then, I didn't care. I was already done. I broke things off right there, and she stormed out, calling me every name in the book. I didn't blame her, really. I was damaged, and it was unfair to drag someone else into my mess. After that, I stopped trying. Figured it was easier to be alone than to keep getting hurt. That's how it was for a long time. Just me and the kids. I threw myself into work, trying to build something stable for the twins and Olivia. Every time Catherine asked for more money, I'd get more pissed off. I wasn't rolling in cash or anything, but she acted like I was some sort of ATM, ready to spit out euros on command. The worst part was, Every time she'd ask, it wasn't even for the twins or Olivia. It was always for Emma. New clothes, school trips, some sports activity. Whatever it was always Emma needs this or Emma needs that. I didn't have it in me to fight back every single time. So most of the time, I'd just send the money and try to move on. But it was always in the back of my mind, this nagging feeling that I was being taken advantage of, paying for a child that wasn't even mine. Catherine knew it too. She'd use Emma like some kind of bargaining chip, knowing that I couldn't say no without looking like the bad guy. Years passed, and before I knew it, Olivia was 14. She was growing up fast, and things were starting to get tense between her and Catherine. I didn't know the full story at the time, but one day, Olivia showed up at my doorstep with a suitcase, saying she couldn't live with her mom anymore. Apparently, they'd had this huge blow-up fight over money. Catherine was trying to take some savings Olivia had been putting away, and Olivia wasn't having it. I let her stay with me, of course, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Having Olivia around full-time again felt like a breath of fresh air. She was smart, independent, and she didn't let Catherine push her around. She stayed with me until she was 20, and during that time, we got closer than ever. But with Olivia living with me, things with Catherine got even worse. She hated that Olivia had chosen me over her, and she made sure to let me know it. The texts, the phone calls, they all got more frequent, more demanding. And every time it was the same thing. What about Emma? And that's when the real problem started. So, by the time Olivia was 20 and fully moved out, I thought the worst of the drama was behind me. I mean, I'd managed to get through the divorce, the custody fights, and all the constant battles with Catherine. The twins were off doing their thing. Olivia was thriving, and I was finally starting to feel like things were settling down. But of course, I should have known better. It all started with this text from Catherine. Now, I'd blocked her number a few times, but she always found a way to get a new one or use some random app to send messages. Anyway, she texted me one day saying something like, "We need to talk about Emma's future. It's time you stepped up as her father." I'm not even kidding. She actually said that, stepped up as her father. I was fuming. I didn't respond right away because I needed to cool down, but after a few days, I decided to call her. I figured I'd give her a chance to explain what the hell she was talking about. So, I call her up, and before I can even say a word, she launches into this whole spiel about how Emma's about to turn 18 and how it's time for me to start thinking about her financially. She starts comparing her to the twins and Olivia, saying how they each got their share of money when they graduated, and now it's Emma's turn. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "Wait, you're serious?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I was already losing it. "You expect me to just hand over money for a kid that isn't even mine?" Catherine didn't miss a beat. "She's been your daughter for 18 years, she said, all smug. "You've supported her all this time, and it's only fair she gets the same as the others. She's been through enough." Through enough? I thought. What about me? What about everything I'd been through because of her lies? I was speechless for a moment, but when I finally got my words together, I couldn't hold back. "She's not my daughter, Catherine. You've known that since the day she was born. I've already paid child support for years because the court forced me to. But that's over now. You can't expect me to just fork over thousands like nothing happened." She got real quiet for a second, and then she hit me with, "If you don't give her what she deserves, you'll be ruining her future. She's worked hard, and she's earned it. This isn't about me, it's about her." I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. "No," I said, feeling my blood boil. "This is exactly about you. You lied to me for years, made me raise a child that wasn't mine, and now you think I owe you more? You've got to be kidding me." And that's when she lost it. She started yelling, calling me a terrible father, saying how I was punishing Emma for something that wasn't her fault. And yeah, maybe she had a point there. Emma didn't choose this, but at the same time, neither did I. And I wasn't going to let Catherine guilt me into giving up more of my money. After that, I hung up on her. I couldn't take it anymore. But it didn't end there. Of course not. Catherine wasn't the type to just let things go. Over the next few weeks, she kept trying to get in touch with me. Calls, texts, even emails. All saying the same thing. Emma deserves her share. It's not fair to leave her out. One day, I'm sitting at home, finally relaxing after a long day at work, and my phone rings. I look at the caller ID, and it's Emma. I hadn't heard from her in a long time, so I was pretty surprised. I figured maybe she just wanted to catch up or talk about something unrelated to all this drama with her mom. But nope. The first thing she says when I pick up is, "Why aren't you giving me the money like you did for Olivia and the twins?" My heart sank. This wasn't Emma calling on her own. It was Catherine's doing, for sure. I could hear it in her voice, the same entitled attitude her mom always had. I didn't want to get into it with her, but I also wasn't going to lie. "Emma," I said, trying to stay calm, I've already explained this to your mom. The money I saved was for my kids, and you, well, you're not my daughter. I'm sorry if that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. She didn't take it well. At all. Emma started crying, telling me how unfair it was, how she felt like I'd always treated her differently, like she wasn't part of the family. And honestly, that hit me harder than I expected. I mean, it wasn't her fault she was born into this situation. She'd been raised thinking I was her dad, and now, just as she was turning 18, she was finding out that wasn't true. I felt bad for her, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore what Catherine had done to me. I'm not trying to hurt you, Emma, I said, feeling this knot in my stomach. But your mom lied to me, for years, and now I can't just pretend like that didn't happen. I've done everything I was legally required to do, and I've paid for your upbringing, but I don't owe you more than that. She wasn't having it. She shouted something about how I was punishing her for her mom's mistakes and how I'd never really loved her like I did the others. And you know what? She was right in a way. I didn't love her like I loved the others. How could I, knowing she wasn't mine? I tried to end the conversation there, but she kept going, talking about how she deserved the same as Olivia and the twins. She said she'd find a way to get the money from me, whether I liked it or not. That's when I realized just how far Catherine had poisoned her mind against me. I hung up, feeling this strange mix of guilt and anger. Part of me wanted to help Emma, but I knew deep down that I couldn't keep letting Catherine walk all over me. She'd already taken enough from me. My trust, my money, my peace of mind. I wasn't going to let her take more. Over the next few days, Catherine kept pushing. She even had some lawyer send me a letter, threatening to take me to court if I didn't give Emma the money. But I knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. The child support was done, and I'd already given more than enough. It felt like I was being ganged up on, not just by Catherine, but by Emma too. And while I could understand Emma's feelings, I couldn't let myself get dragged back into their mess. Not again. Not after everything I'd been through. So I blocked Catherine's number again and decided that was it. No more money, no more games. If Emma wanted to be mad at me, fine. But I wasn't going to keep paying for someone else's lies. And that was the beginning of the end with Emma. After blocking Catherine's number for what felt like the 100th time, I really thought that was it. I mean, I had made my position clear. No more money, no more manipulation. Emma had turned 18, and legally, my responsibilities were over. I'd paid child support for years, raised 3 amazing kids of my own, and done more than enough for a child that wasn't even mine. I was done. Or so I thought. But just when I thought things had finally quieted down, Catherine found a way to stir things up again. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was at home, relaxing for once. The twins were off with friends, Olivia was visiting from college, and we were all just hanging out, watching some stupid movie on Netflix. I hadn't heard from Emma since that last phone call, so I figured she'd finally accepted the situation. I was wrong. There was a knock on the door, and I had this gut feeling it was them. I don't know why, but I just knew it was Catherine and Emma. I wasn't in the mood for more drama, but I couldn't exactly ignore the door either. Olivia glanced at me like, "Are you going to get that?" So I got up, sighed, and opened the door, and there they were. Catherine, with her smug little smile, and Emma, standing there looking pissed off. "Can we come in?" Catherine said, as if this was a friendly visit. "No," I said, crossing my arms. "We can talk right here." Catherine looked like she was about to argue, but then she just shrugged. "Fine. We won't take long. We're here to talk about Emma's future." I already knew where this was going, but I let her talk. She launched into this whole speech about how Emma had been accepted into some university and how she needed money for tuition, living expenses, and everything else. Catherine even had the nerve to pull out a printed list of all the costs, like I was just going to write a check on the spot. "I told you already," I said, cutting her off. "I'm not giving Emma any money. I've paid enough over the years, and I'm not paying for her college. That's not my responsibility." Emma, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. "So you're just going to abandon me? Again?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. I knew she was angry, but hearing it from her directly made me feel like the bad guy all over again, but I had to stand my ground. "I'm not abandoning you, Emma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I'm not your father. You've known that for a while now. I've done my part. I've paid what the court ordered, but I don't owe you anything beyond that. If you need money for college, your mom can help you. Or you can get a loan, like most people do." Emma's face twisted in anger. "It's not fair. You gave the twins and Olivia money for school, and now you're just cutting me off because I'm not yours? That's messed up." And yeah, maybe it was messed up, but I wasn't going to keep paying for Catherine's lies. I gave money to my kids, I said, emphasizing the word my. That money was for them because they're my responsibility. You're not my responsibility, Emma. I'm sorry if that hurts, but it's the truth. That's when Catherine decided to jump in. You're such a selfish bastard, you know that? You've raised Emma for 18 years and now you're just throwing her away because she's not biologically yours? What kind of father does that? I could feel my blood pressure rising. Catherine was the last person who should be lecturing me on what kind of father I was. You've got a lot of nerve, Catherine, I snapped. You're the one who lied to me for years. You're the one who cheated, who kept me in the dark, and now you want to act like I'm the villain? You created this mess, not me. Catherine just shook her head, like she was the victim in all this. I didn't know for sure, okay? It wasn't like I was trying to hurt you. That was her excuse. She didn't know for sure, as if that made everything better. I was so done with her lies. Get out, I said, stepping back to close the door. I'm not having this conversation anymore. Emma looked at me with tears in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. Catherine, on the other hand, wasn't going down without a fight. You're going to regret this, she hissed. When Emma's successful and you're alone, you'll wish you'd done the right thing. I slammed the door in her face before she could say anything else. I didn't care what she had to say anymore. I was tired of being manipulated, tired of being the bad guy in a situation I didn't create. When I went back inside, Olivia was sitting on the couch, watching me with this concerned look. Everything okay? She asked, even though she already knew the answer. Yeah, I said, collapsing onto the couch. It's fine, just more of the same. Olivia didn't push me for details. She never did. She understood what I'd been through better than anyone. We sat there in silence for a while, just watching the movie, but I couldn't focus on it. My mind was racing, replaying everything that had just happened. I knew Emma was hurting, and a part of me felt bad for her. She didn't ask to be born into this situation, and she didn't deserve to feel abandoned. But at the same time, I couldn't keep sacrificing my own sanity for her. I couldn't keep letting Catherine drag me down, using Emma as a pawn in her twisted game. In the end, I had to choose my own peace. I had to protect myself from getting sucked back into that toxic mess. I'd done enough, more than enough, and it was time for Catherine and Emma to figure things out on their own. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that Emma had gotten into school with a scholarship and some financial aid. She was doing fine without my money, just like I knew she would. Catherine had tried to make it seem like I was the only thing standing between Emma and failure, but that wasn't true. Emma was strong, smart, and capable. She didn't need me. Not really. And as for Catherine, well, I haven't heard from her since. Hopefully that means she's finally realized that I'm not her safety net anymore. She's going to have to face the consequences of her actions, whether she likes it or not. I'm not going to lie and say everything's perfect now. I still think about Emma sometimes. Wonder if I could have handled things differently. But in the end, I did what I had to do to protect myself. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm finally free. Friend's sister lied that I got her pregnant. My parents disowned me. Now the truth's out and they're begging. All right, so here's the deal. My life turned into a complete mess about a year ago, and I've got to get this off my chest. I never thought I'd be here sharing this on Reddit, but I guess that's what happens when your family goes nuts, and you're left standing there like, how did this even happen? Anyway, let me start from the beginning because, trust me, this is one of those situations where you're just like, seriously, what the hell? So, my buddy Dave has a sister, Jenny. I've known them both for years. We all grew up in the same neighborhood, hung out sometimes. Nothing major, right? Jenny was always kind of different. I don't want to sound mean or anything, but she had some mental health stuff going on. I'm not privy to all the details, and honestly, it wasn't my business. Dave never talked much about it, and I didn't pry. But everyone knew Jenny had her struggles. Anyway, about a year ago, out of nowhere, Jenny hits me up and says she's pregnant. Okay, cool, right? Except for one tiny detail. She tells me I'm the dad. And at that moment, I swear, my brain just short-circuited. I was like, wait, what? Now let me be crystal clear about this. I've never even hugged Jenny, let alone been, intimate with her. Not even once. So, for her to come at me with this wild accusation, I couldn't even process it. I told her straight up, Jenny, I don't know what you're talking about, but there's no way I'm the father. We've never been close like that. And she just kept saying it over and over again, like somehow I was going to magically remember a night that never happened. It was bizarre, to say the least. I tried to stay calm, thinking maybe this was part of her mental health struggles or something, but deep down I was freaking out. Now this is where things start going off the rails. Jenny refuses to take a prenatal paternity test. I'm sitting there thinking, If you're so sure it's my kid, why wouldn't you just take the test and prove it? But she wouldn't budge. She kept saying stuff like, you need to be there for your child, and you're abandoning us before the baby's even born. It was guilt trip city, and I wasn't buying it. So I made it clear. If she wasn't going to take the test, I wasn't going to sign anything. I wasn't about to get legally tied to a kid that wasn't mine. Simple, right? I thought that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. Cue the family drama. A few weeks after that, my parents find out. Now, I love my parents, but they have this whole traditional values thing going on. And the second they hear about the situation, they lose it. Like, completely lose it. They're calling me names, saying I'm a deadbeat and a disgrace. And I'm just standing there trying to get a word in, but they're not listening. I told them, Mom, Dad, this isn't my kid. Jenny's just making stuff up. But they weren't having it. It's like once they got it in their heads that I was responsible for this baby, they couldn't shake it. There were a lot of nasty arguments after that. Things were said that I probably can't take back. And honestly, I'm still mad about it. My parents kept pushing me to do the right thing and step up as a father, even though I kept telling them it wasn't my kid. It didn't matter to them. In their eyes, I was already guilty. They said they didn't raise me to be some kind of deadbeat, and they couldn't believe I would deny my own child. Here's where things get even crazier. I wasn't even in the same state when Jenny would have gotten pregnant. That's right, she was staying at a friend's place for an entire month when she supposedly conceived. I brought this up to my parents, and they just brushed it off. People make mistakes, they said. Yeah, well, this wasn't just a mistake. This was a full-blown accusation that could wreck my life. Fast forward to about 6 months into Jenny's pregnancy. By this point, the whole family has turned against me. Every family dinner, every phone call, every text, it's all about how I need to man up and take responsibility for this baby. I was losing my mind. It was like I was in some nightmare, and no matter what I said or did, nobody believed me. My friends were mostly on my side, thankfully, but even a couple of them started questioning things like, "Are you sure, man? Maybe you don't remember something?" Finally, my parents dropped the ultimate bomb on me. If I don't step up and act like a father, they're cutting me out of their lives, disowning me, kicking me to the curb. At first, I thought they were bluffing, but nope, they were dead serious. They told me flat out that if I didn't go along with this, I was no longer welcome in the family. And sure enough, when I didn't cave, they disowned me. Let me tell you, that hurt. I was pissed off, confused, and just plain hurt. These were the people who raised me, who were supposed to have my back, and they chose to believe someone else over me. My own family threw me out like I didn't matter. It was brutal. Things got even weirder after the baby was born. My mom was there at the hospital playing the role of proud grandma. I didn't even know until later. Jenny still wouldn't take the paternity test, so I had to go through some legal stuff to get it done. When the results came in, guess what? Not my kid. 0% chance I was the father. And as soon as I got that paper in my hand, I felt this wave of relief and anger all at once. I sent the results to my parents thinking, finally they'll see the truth. They'll realize they were wrong and everything will go back to normal. Nope. Instead, they started blowing up my phone with apologies, offers of money, and begging me to forgive them. My dad even sent me a few $100 in the mail like that was going to fix things. But here's the thing, I kept the money. Yeah, I took it. I felt like they owed me for all the crap they put me through. But forgive them? No way. I made it clear that if they were willing to disown me over something like this, I wasn't going to risk opening myself up to that kind of betrayal again. Most of my friends were on my side, but a few, along with my therapist, started saying things like, maybe you should give them another chance. They're your parents after all. And I get it. I really do. But how do you just forgive someone who was ready to throw you away so easily? How do you trust someone who believed a lie over their own child? That's where I'm at now. Stuck between knowing I did nothing wrong and wondering if I should even bother trying to fix things with my family. But every time I think about it, I remember how quickly they turned on me, and I can't shake the feeling that they failed me when I needed them the most. All right, so after everything that went down with my parents and Jenny's baby drama, you'd think things would calm down, right? Nope. Life had other plans for me. If anything, the whole mess just kept spiraling. You'd think proving I wasn't the dad would have been the end of it, but man, I wish it was that simple. Turns out, when people don't want to admit they messed up, they'll do anything to avoid taking responsibility. So, after the paternity test results came in and confirmed I wasn't the father, I thought, all right, now my parents will realize they were wrong and maybe things can get back to normal. But instead of the relief I was expecting, things got way more complicated. First off, Jenny completely lost it. She started spreading rumors around town that I had faked the test or somehow tampered with it. Yeah, you read that right. In her mind, I had somehow convinced a whole lab to rig the results in my favor. Like, how would I even do that? I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some mastermind who knows how to manipulate DNA tests. But Jenny wasn't hearing any of it. She was dead set on making me the bad guy in her story. She went around telling people that I was abandoning her and the baby, that I'd tricked everyone into thinking I wasn't the dad. It didn't make sense, but it didn't matter. People started to believe her. Small town rumors spread fast, and soon I had folks giving me dirty looks at the grocery store like I was some kind of scumbag. I even had people straight up confront me, asking why I wasn't stepping up to take care of my kid. It was infuriating. I had the test results to prove I wasn't the father, but no one seemed to care. Jenny was out there playing the victim, and I was getting blamed for something I had no part in. I'd never felt so helpless in my life. It's one thing when your family turns on you, but when the whole town starts thinking you're the bad guy, that hits different. And my parents? Well, they were still trying to play nice, but it was clear they didn't know how to handle the situation either. My mom kept calling, leaving these long emotional voicemails about how she just wanted her family back together. She didn't even address what had happened. She just wanted to sweep everything under the rug like nothing had ever gone down. She even suggested I come over for dinner, like that was going to magically fix all the damage they'd done. It wasn't just awkward, it was insulting. After everything they put me through, they thought a few family dinners and some fake smiles would make it all okay. No apology, no acknowledgement of how badly they messed up. Just, let's move on. It was like they didn't even realize how much trust they had shattered. And that's the thing. Once trust is broken like that, it's not something you can just patch up with a meal and a hug. It takes real work, real effort to rebuild, and they weren't even willing to admit they were wrong. The kicker came when my dad tried to bribe me. He straight up sent me an email offering to buy me a new car if I would come back to the family. Like, what? They think they can just buy my forgiveness? It was so out of touch with reality that I didn't even know how to respond. I just stared at the email for a while, trying to figure out if this was some kind of sick joke. But nope, my dad was serious. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What do you even say to something like that? They didn't care about fixing things the right way. They just wanted me back in their lives because it was convenient for them. And the fact that they thought throwing money at me would solve everything, it made me realize how little they actually understood what they'd done. But the worst part came later, when I found out Jenny had started reaching out to people I knew, trying to drag them into her drama. She even contacted my ex-girlfriend, Samantha, and tried to convince her that I was this terrible person who had abandoned his kid. Sam and I hadn't spoken in years, but out of the blue, I get a text from her saying, "We need to talk." At first, I had no idea what she was talking about, but when she explained that Jenny had been messaging her, trying to stir up old drama, I just about lost it. I called Jenny and told her to stop. I was done with the games, done with the lies, and I wasn't going to let her drag my friends and exes into her mess. But she just laughed and hung up on me. It was like talking to a wall. She was so wrapped up in her fantasy world that nothing I said would get through to her. At this point, I was seriously considering getting a lawyer involved. I didn't want to take it that far, but what choice did I have? Jenny was out here ruining my reputation. My parents were enabling her behavior, and I felt like I had no one in my corner. My closest friends supported me, sure, but even they didn't know the full extent of how bad things had gotten. Eventually, I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this constant state of stress, waiting for the next rumor to pop up or the next crazy accusation to come my way. I decided to cut ties completely, not just with Jenny, but with my parents too. It wasn't easy. It sucked, actually, but I knew I couldn't keep letting them drag me down. I wrote my parents a long email explaining everything, how I felt betrayed, how they had failed me, how I couldn't trust them anymore. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told them straight up that I wasn't ready to forgive them, and I didn't know if I ever would be. I told them that if they wanted any chance at a relationship with me in the future, they'd have to start by actually apologizing and taking responsibility for their actions. No more pretending everything was fine, no more sweeping things under the rug. As for Jenny, I blocked her on everything. I couldn't deal with her manipulations anymore. She wasn't my problem, and I wasn't going to let her keep dragging me into her mess. I even had to tell Dave, her brother, that I couldn't be around his family for a while. That was tough because Dave's always been a good friend, but I had to put my own well-being first. It's been a few months since I cut them off, and honestly, it's been a relief. Sure, there are days when I feel guilty or second-guess myself, but overall, I know I made the right call. Sometimes you have to walk away, even when it's hard. And yeah, it's messy and complicated, but at least now I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next disaster to hit. I can finally breathe again. But man, if you told me a year ago that this is where I'd end up, I never would have believed you. Life's funny like that, I guess. Update 1. Alright, so here's where things get even weirder. I thought cutting ties with Jenny and my parents would be the end of the chaos. Like I figured once I removed them from my life, everything would calm down and I could move on. But of course, things don't work out that easily. Cutting them off? That was just the beginning of a whole new mess. A couple of weeks after I sent that email to my parents and blocked Jenny, I get this unexpected message from an old high school friend, Mike. We hadn't talked in years, but out of nowhere, he's asking if I'm doing okay. At first I'm thinking, okay, that's random, but then he tells me that my parents reached out to him. Now Mike and I weren't even that close back in the day, so for my parents to contact him, that was a huge red flag. Apparently they'd been going around trying to get people to talk to me on their behalf. I'm talking old friends, distant relatives, even people I barely know. They were telling everyone that I was in a bad place and that they were worried about me. It was like they were trying to make me seem like the one who was unstable. And the worst part? They were framing the whole thing as if I was the one who needed to apologize for cutting them off. Mike was cool about it. He knew something was up and wanted to give me a heads up, but it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I started getting messages from all sorts of people. People I hadn't spoken to in years. People I'd only met a few times. They were all saying the same thing. Your parents are really worried about you. Or, you should give them another chance. It was insane. They had somehow convinced all these people that I was the bad guy in this situation, that I had gone off the rails and needed to make amends. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, just trying to move on with my life, and my parents were out here doing a full-on PR campaign, trying to make me look like the villain. I felt like I was in some kind of weird alternate reality where nothing made sense. No matter how much I tried to stay away from the drama, it just kept finding its way back to me. The final straw came when they reached out to my boss. Yeah, you heard that right. My parents called my job. I don't even know how they got the number, but they somehow tracked down my boss's contact info and called the office, telling him they were concerned about me and that I wasn't in the right headspace. Can you imagine how humiliating that was? My boss pulled me into his office one day, looking all serious, and asked if everything was okay at home. I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say at first. Like, what do you say when your boss is asking if your parents think you've gone off the deep end? I explained the whole situation to him, and luckily, he was super understanding about it. He even apologized for bringing it up, but man, the damage was done. My own parents were out there trying to mess with my job now. It felt like they were determined to ruin everything for me, just because I wouldn't bend to their will. After that, I had no choice. I went to a lawyer and started the process of getting a restraining order against them. I didn't want to take things that far, but what choice did I have? They were messing with my career, my friends, my peace of mind. I had to protect myself, even if it meant legally cutting them off. The process was long and stressful. There were court dates, paperwork, and just a whole lot of anxiety that came with it. But at the same time, I felt a weird sense of relief. Like finally, I was taking control of the situation. No more letting them invade every part of my life. No more letting them manipulate the narrative. Of course, when they found out about the restraining order, all hell broke loose. My mom sent me this long, guilt-trippy email about how she never imagined her own son would do this, and how family is supposed to stick together no matter what. She kept saying that I was tearing the family apart, that I was the one causing all the pain. It was textbook manipulation, but I didn't bite. I didn't respond. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but things got even worse before they got better. One day I came home from work to find my car vandalized. Someone had keyed the word liar into the side of it. I had no proof it was my parents, but come on, who else would it be? I hadn't told anyone about the restraining order except for a few close friends. My parents were the only ones who had a motive to pull something like that. It was like they couldn't handle losing control, so they had to lash out in whatever way they could. I filed a police report, but nothing ever came of it. Just another reminder that even when you try to do things the right way, sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can turn into your worst enemies. I started parking my car at a friend's house after that, just to be safe. I couldn't take any more chances. I even installed security cameras around my apartment, just in case they tried something else. It felt like I was living in a constant state of paranoia, always waiting for the next shoe to drop. But eventually, things started to calm down. The restraining order went through, and my parents were officially barred from contacting me or coming anywhere near my home or workplace. It was a huge weight off my shoulders, For the first time in what felt like forever, I could finally breathe. It's been a few months now, and I'm still picking up the pieces. I had to do a lot of damage control with my friends and coworkers, explaining the whole situation to them and making sure they knew the truth. Most of them were supportive, but a few were skeptical, like, "Are you sure your parents would really go that far?" I get it, it's hard to believe. But when you've lived through it, you know how far some people will go when they feel like they're losing control. Looking back, I never imagined things would get this bad. It's crazy how quickly family can turn on you when you refuse to play by their rules. But I've learned something important through all of this. You can't let anyone, not even your family, dictate how you live your life. Sometimes you have to make the hard choice to walk away, even when it hurts. I don't know what the future holds for me and my parents. Maybe one day they'll realize what they did and apologize for real. Maybe not. But either way, I'm done letting them control my life. I've got my own path to follow, and I'm not looking back. Update 2. Alright, so here's where things take a bit of a turn. After I finally got the restraining order and started trying to rebuild my life, I thought things would finally settle down. But, surprise, surprise, life had other plans. Just when I was beginning to feel like I could breathe again, my parents found a new way to mess with me. This time, it wasn't direct contact. It wasn't vandalizing my car or sending emails. No, this was a whole different level of messed up. So one day, I'm sitting at home, just minding my own business, when I get a letter in the mail. Nothing too weird about that, right? Except this letter is from a lawyer. At first, I thought it was something related to the restraining order, maybe some final paperwork or something. But nope, it was a lawsuit. My own parents were suing me. For what, you ask? Emotional distress. I couldn't even believe what I was reading. They were actually suing me for cutting them off, saying that my actions had caused them severe emotional damage and that they were entitled to compensation. They even claimed I had alienated them from the rest of the family, which was complete nonsense because they were the ones who isolated me, not the other way around. I sat there for a good few minutes, just staring at the letter, trying to process what was happening. I mean, who does that? Who sues their own kid because they're mad they got cut off? I didn't even know what to do. Part of me wanted to laugh at how ridiculous it all was, but another part of me was seriously stressed out. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was legal, and it was about to get real messy. I called my lawyer immediately. I couldn't handle this on my own. She was just as shocked as I was. She'd seen plenty of messy family cases, but suing your own kid for emotional distress? That was new even for her. We went over the details of the lawsuit, and while most of it was clearly bogus, I knew we couldn't just ignore it. They were serious, and that meant I had to fight back. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and stress. I had to gather all the evidence of everything that had happened. The paternity test results, the restraining order, the harassment I'd been dealing with. My lawyer was confident we could win, but it still felt surreal that it had come to this. My own parents were trying to drag me through the mud in court, all because I refused to let them control me anymore. But here's the thing. They didn't stop at just the lawsuit. Oh no. They had to take it a step further. They started reaching out to other family members, trying to turn them against me. I started getting messages from aunts, uncles, cousins, all people I hadn't heard from in years. They were all saying the same thing. Why can't you just make peace with your parents? Or, family is everything. You're being selfish. It was like they'd been brainwashed into thinking I was the villain in all of this. I was furious. Not just at my parents, but at the whole situation. It felt like no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried to protect myself, they always found a way to twist the narrative and make me look like the bad guy. I mean, how do you explain to someone who's only hearing one side of the story that your parents are suing you for emotional distress because you enforced boundaries? It got to the point where I had to cut off even more people. I blocked family members, unfriended people on social media, and just shut down any connection to that side of my life. It wasn't because I didn't care about them, I did. But I couldn't keep explaining myself over and over again to people who had already made up their minds. It was exhausting, and I was done trying to justify my decisions to people who weren't willing to see the bigger picture. Eventually, the court date rolled around. I showed up with my lawyer, prepared for whatever nonsense they were going to throw at me. And let me tell you, it was a circus. My parents had this whole sob story lined up about how they'd always been there for me, how they'd tried to help me through tough times, and how I had cruelly cut them off without reason. They painted themselves as the victims in all of this, which was honestly impressive considering they were the ones who disowned me in the first place. But my lawyer wasn't having it. She tore their arguments apart piece by piece, showing the judge all the evidence of their harassment, the restraining order, the paternity test, everything. It was brutal, and by the end of it, you could see the judge wasn't buying their story. The judge ruled in my favor, obviously. The lawsuit was thrown out, and my parents were ordered to pay my legal fees, which was a small victory in the grand scheme of things. But even though I won, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I had just barely escaped a nightmare, and there was still so much fallout to deal with. After the case, my parents tried one last-ditch effort to get back into my life. They sent me this long, emotional letter about how they were sorry for everything, how they just wanted to make things right, and how they couldn't bear to lose me. It was the same old guilt-tripping nonsense they'd been pulling from the start. And honestly, I didn't even respond. I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going back. There's only so much someone can take before they have to walk away for good. And yeah, it hurt. Cutting off your family isn't easy, no matter how bad things get. But sometimes it's necessary for your own sanity. I couldn't keep letting them drag me into their chaos, no matter how much they claimed to love me. Their version of love was toxic, and I wasn't going to let it poison my life anymore. So, that's where I'm at now. The lawsuit's behind me, the restraining order's still in place, and I'm moving forward. It hasn't been easy, but I'm learning how to live without all the noise, without the constant stress of wondering when the next disaster is going to hit. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have some control over my life. And that feels pretty damn good. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day things will change, maybe they won't. But right now I'm focusing on myself, on rebuilding the parts of my life that they tried to tear down. It's been a long road, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Update 3. Alright, so if you've been keeping up with everything so far, you'd think after the lawsuit mess and the restraining order, that'd be the end of the madness. But nope, my family found a way to surprise me one last time. And this one? Honestly, it left me shaking my head because I didn't think they could sink any lower. But here we are. So, a couple of months after the court ruled in my favor, things had finally started to calm down. I had cut ties with everyone causing me stress, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually focus on rebuilding my life. No random messages from old friends, no letters from lawyers, just peace. Or at least, that's what I thought. One day, I'm out running some errands, just doing normal stuff like grocery shopping, when I bump into my cousin Melissa. Now, Melissa and I hadn't talked much during all this drama. We were never super close growing up, but we'd always gotten along. So when I saw her, I figured, why not say hi? We ended up chatting for a bit, and at first it was pretty normal. You know, catching up on life, work, the usual stuff. But then, out of nowhere, she hits me with, "Hey, did you hear what your parents are planning?" I froze. "Planning?" I asked, suddenly feeling that familiar pit in my stomach. Melissa looked a little uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure if she should even be telling me. But she sighed and went on, "Yeah, they're throwing a big family reunion next month. Apparently, they've been telling everyone they're hoping it'll be a reconciliation thing between you and them." I couldn't believe it. They were seriously planning some kind of ambush reunion to try and force me back into the family? I asked Melissa for more details, and it turned out they were inviting everyone. Distant relatives, family friends, people I hadn't seen in years. And the kicker? They'd been telling everyone that I'd be there, acting like I was in on this whole thing. I was furious. I hadn't agreed to anything, and now they were setting me up to look like the bad guy if I didn't show up. It was another classic move from my parents. Manipulate the situation, make me look like the villain, and try to guilt-trip me into doing what they wanted. I thanked Melissa for letting me know and told her straight up that I wasn't going. She understood, but even she seemed a little torn, like she was buying into my parents' "we just want to fix things" narrative. I could see it in her face. She wanted me to go, to make things right. But after everything they'd done, there was no way I was walking into that trap. I went home that night and thought long and hard about what to do. I knew I wasn't going to the reunion, but part of me felt like I needed to say something. I couldn't just ignore this. So I decided to send one final message to my parents, laying everything out once and for all. The next morning, I sat down and wrote them an email. It wasn't long, but it was direct. I told them that I knew about the reunion and that I wasn't coming. I made it clear that I didn't want to be a part of any reconciliation that was being forced on me, especially not in front of a crowd of people. I told them that if they really cared about fixing things, they'd have to start by respecting my boundaries. And until they could do that, there was nothing more to talk about. I didn't expect a response, and honestly, I didn't need one. I just needed to set the record straight one last time. But of course, my parents couldn't just let it go. A few days later, my dad called me. I didn't pick up, But he left this long, rambling voicemail about how I was tearing the family apart, and how this reunion was supposed to be a fresh start for all of us. He even tried to guilt me by saying, "Your grandparents would be so disappointed in how you're handling this." That voicemail hit me hard, not because I believed it, but because it reminded me of all the times my parents had used guilt and manipulation to get their way. They'd pull any card they could to make me feel like I was the problem, even if it meant dragging my grandparents into it. People who had always been supportive of me, by the way. It was like they couldn't accept that maybe, just maybe, they were the ones who needed to take a long, hard look at themselves. I didn't respond to the voicemail. What was the point? I'd said my piece, and I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their drama. But that didn't mean it didn't weigh on me. For days after that, I kept thinking about the reunion, about all the relatives who were going to be there, thinking I was just refusing to make peace. I wondered how many of them actually knew the full story, how many were getting the twisted version my parents were feeding them. The reunion came and went, and I didn't hear a word from my parents afterward. I saw some photos on Facebook, happy faces, family hugs, the whole deal. My parents were smiling, acting like everything was fine, like they hadn't just spent the last year trying to destroy my life. It was weird, seeing them like that, pretending everything was perfect. But I guess that's what they were always good at, pretending. A few weeks later, I ran into Melissa again, and she told me the reunion had been awkward. Apparently, a lot of people had expected me to show up, and when I didn't, there were some uncomfortable conversations. My parents had tried to explain my absence, but from what Melissa said, it didn't go over well. A few relatives even started questioning why I wasn't there and why my parents hadn't been more honest about the whole situation. I guess not everyone was buying their story after all, and that, I guess, is where things stand now. I've managed to distance myself from the drama, but I know it's always lurking there, just beneath the surface. My parents will probably never admit they were wrong, and I've accepted that. I can't change them. But what I can do is protect myself, keep building my life without their influence, and focus on the people who actually care about me for real. It's been a long road, and I'm not going to lie, it still hurts sometimes. Cutting off your family isn't easy, and there are days when I wonder if I did the right thing. But deep down, I know I had to. I had to choose myself, my mental health, and my own future over the toxic cycle they kept trying to drag me into. So yeah, that's the end of this wild ride. Maybe one day things will change, maybe they won't. But either way, I'm done letting my family control my life. I've got my own path to walk now, and for the first time in a long time, I'm walking it on my own terms.